Well, thank you very much for coming. We have today the seminar which is given by Magdalena Zabek, she's doing her PhD in the University of Queensland in Australia, and she's working on population dynamics in feral horses there. And it's going to be a little bit special seminar because she's going to show us some of her research, but she's going to combine it with some parts of a documentary that she has directed and recorded there in Australia. And she has been in Doñana because she has came here because she's quite interested in the research of feral horses in several places apart from Australia. So she has been all the weekend in visiting Doñana and watching the retuerta horses. And well, she's going to tell us probably the differences on how do they manage these horses in Australia. So, whatever you want.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this introduction. Thank you very much for coming. I do not have Australian accent. I was born in Poland. Apparently it's good because my Spanish friends can understand me better because I don't mumble like every Australian does. So yes, I would like to show you, of course, like the traditional way, a little bit of PowerPoint presentation and tell you a little bit about Australian feral horses, the population management, and then I would like to describe a little bit the population which I focused my research over nearly 4 years. And because I am a freak, a photographer, amateur, and a filmmaker, I made a documentary. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the entire film because it's 50 minutes long. So I choose few parts which I thought you may be interested. However, if after the seminar, you would like to see more, I'm here, so we can stay longer. If not, don't worry, I won't be offended at all. So that is just a trailer which I made just to encourage people to come. Hopefully I got you on this one. So, going back to my presentation. I'm the author of all of the slides, maybe except this one. I didn't go that far yet in a helicopter. That was a bit too high to take a photo of Australia. But anyway, so going back to Australian wild horse, it's not wild, it's introduced, so we call it a feral horse. Like any other introduced animal white settlers brought to Australia many years ago, we have quite a few of them: camels, goats, cattle, pigs. We can name actually quite a large list of species. Someone estimated there is about 250 of species of animals and plants which have been brought to the country. Feral horses in Australia, they are distributed everywhere. The only one state which is free from horses is Tasmania, which is at the south of Australia. I didn't put it on the map, but they're pretty much in every state and territory. However, those little warning signs indicate that they are the highest concentrations. This is at least what we believe it is. So, the estimation is 1 million horses. I learned you have a little bit less here in Spain. So, we have about 20 million people living in Australia, 22, and we have probably up to 1 million of horses. No one really knows how many, because you can only survey certain part of the country and horses occupy very remote areas. But based on estimates done anything between 10 to 20 years ago, based on rough ideas of population growth, that is kind of what we think. It could be anything between 600,000 to 1 million. You won't find this number published anywhere, by the way. This is just an estimate. which one of my supervisors made. So I would like to probably know, where do the horses live? I will show you a few photographs because I traveled to many places in Australia to see what kind of habitats they occupy. So for example, this is a St. June's at the Simpson Desert and towards Lake Eyre, so it will be kind of in a central part of Australia. Very dry land, as you can see. Sometimes it is flooded by water. There are some temporary rivers, only in a good years of rain. This is actually a good year of rain, so as you see, everything is absolutely covered by water. Do you see this kind of a narrow... I didn't make this one work, I'll just show it here. Do you see this narrow line here? This is a road, also completely covered by water, so you cannot drive there for few good months. So they live in remote areas, cattle stations, also national parks. They occupy Central Australia and Northern Territory, which is very arid, kind of like a semi-desert. And they adapted to periods of a drought and limit access to water. Very often they share habitats with other feral animals like cattle and like camels. We have snow in Australia, if you didn't know before. It's in Australian Alps, by the way, very good place to ski. And they also live there in national parks. So they adapted to some periods of snow, and they learn how to dig in the snow to find food. On Australian east coast, they can live in very native eucalyptus forests, but they can also live in very artificial pine plantation, which has been created by humans. And in some other places they use roads. It's much easier to walk on the main road than navigate between the shrubs, so sometimes they walk on main roads. There's another photograph to show you kind of how they look and how looks the habitat. So, they're cute, they're beautiful, they're absolutely amazing animals. However, they are introduced, so they have a serious impact on Australian environment, like many other introduced species. So that's why the major impact is environmental. But they also have economical issues and social, and I will now explain you briefly what I mean by that. So, this photograph is showing you Central Australia, so the area which has very little amount of rain, about 200 millimeters per year, maybe less. It's still looking great. It was a good year, so a lot of rainfall, grass is growing. I think it's pretty beautiful. And I would like to show you a next photograph. This one was taken in the same area, 50 kilometers further, when it was a bit more dry. Look what the horses and camels and cattle living in the area, what they did with this country. I just show you for comparison. This, the same land, the same soil, the same rainfall, the same amount of species which should be, I'm talking about vegetation, and this, a few kilometers further. So the area is completely flogged. So what they do, not only they eat the grass, but they also destroy water sources because they need to drink, and horses drink a lot. And if you have a large population, they will be drinking a lot of water. But horses are very funny. They don't just go to water to drink. They enjoy water for bathing. This is a big social place for them. So they will be rolling in the sand. They will be bathing. They will be, just having fun. And what they do, they depletion the water source. They will destroy river banks. And if any of you are studying fish or amphibians or reptiles which live near the water source, you can imagine that they destroy their shelters, their little holes, their nests, and all of that, what's there. Having a bath and good time. This harem spent there 1 hour just enjoying getting wet. So they also have a huge economical impact. And what I mean by this, not only some of those horses are desensitized to the traffic. Mind you, it's not that many, because usually, as I said, they live in remote areas. But those populations which live close to the towns, they ignore cars. This is not a domestic horse. This is a wild horse which completely ignores the car. And they graze near the road because there's this maintained short stripes of green grass, and they cross the road often, and very often the foals, so sometimes the adult individuals are killed. It's not as a big of problem of killing a horse, it's more than, it's a problem for people traveling in vehicles that they may actually injure or get killed themselves. It's a large animal to crash with. I think it's a sign of complete ignorance. I love this one, by the way. A stallion just made a statement. I was here. But one of the economical problems is that they compete with domestic stock for food. On average, don't please be too rough with this statement, but on average, a horse eats as much as a cow. So if the cattle owners who have a huge properties, we are talking thousands of hectares, thousands of square kilometers actually. If they have a population of, 5 or 10,000 horses, they potentially have 5 or 10,000 cattle less because the land cannot sustain amount of cattle. So they don't want to have horses on their properties. And in many places, the managers, they are managing the population themselves by just shooting horses, treating them as a pest and something not wanted on the property. I'm only mentioning the main reasons. Of course, there's few more. And the last one is the social impact, because apart from this destruction to the environment, apart from competing for resources with domestic animals, which we value a lot, because as you know, Australia is one of the largest cattle producers in the world, beef cattle. There is also a social impact, because horses by people are perceived as a beautiful species. They are lovely, they are pretty, they have been brought to Australia with those first settlers, probably even, who knows, from Spain. Actually, few were Spanish horses. And they are in Australian short history of settlement play a very important role. And people value them as an aesthetic source and don't want them to be killed, don't want them to be managed too harshly. So there's a lot of people looking at this issue from different perspectives, environmentalists, cow owners, and a general public. So very complicated issue to manage 1 million, maybe less, maybe more, of unwanted horses in Australian land. So what is being done? Of course, those horses are not just left alone. In some places, the population is really flogging. I mean, that's not a scientific term, I guess. Really destroying the land, the country. So in some cases, the population has to be managed. How do you manage population where 99% of people live along the coastline and only 1.something% lives in central Australia? There's not many roads, there's very rugged terrain, really hard to get there. So a lot of those populations are managed by aerial mastering or culling. I will be talking about this in a moment. So this photograph I took when we were mastering horses, cattle and camels in Northern Territory. You see how it's done. There are 3 yards and there's a Hessian wings. And it's like a funnel. So the helicopter is mastering the animals species by species into this corridor, and then it goes to a particular yard. Helicopter has to fly quite low. Horse, if you are too far, you're not putting enough pressure on a group. If you are too low, you may actually put too much pressure, and as a result, we lost those 3 horses. The helicopter went too fast, too low, and this horse here jumped the Hessian wings, jumped the fence, and the other 2 followed him. So we lost this group. This is how this is built. It takes a long, long time in a hot, harsh country. You need a lot of water to drink to build that. That's another photograph, just show you how they are mastered to yards. And the good thing is you can master a large number of animals that way, not just horses, but also camels. They say up to 300 horses in one master. But the thing is that you need a very experienced helicopter, the pilots, but also very good people on the ground, because it is a combination, not just a helicopter rounding the horses up, but on the end, you also on the ground, you need to have people who are opening, closing gates, adding, chasing up horses with quad bikes or cars. So it is very logistically a big operation. Culling. Culling means shooting. We just call it culling. So it also can be done from the air. And that way you have also a team in a helicopter usually, because helicopter is very, easy to maneuver. So we need to have a very experienced pilot and a shooter, and the helicopter flies really low just above the animal, and the animal is shot straight away in the head and dies instantly. And killed one by one, making sure the entire harem is killed, that no other animals are left alone, left behind, like not injured or young. And usually there is also a team on the ground which then follows by a vehicle, and if the animal needs to be destroyed, they can also do that. But most of the time it's killed by a helicopter, and very often the shooter loads the animal with few bullets. So it's a very, very fast way. My colleague even estimated that what's called instantaneous death rate, which is really short. It's just a matter of seconds. Culling is also done from the ground, like this gentleman here is doing, just basically by hunting animals from the ground. This is mostly done by, I would think, like cattle owners, not as much as for large animal number management, because you may miss animals from the ground. They may disappear behind a hill, they may disappear behind a tree. Sometimes it's really hard to get them all, but sometimes it's done in combination with mastering. So if the animals are mastered into an area or trapped, sometimes they are shot. In some cases, only few animals which are like really old or really sick, like injured, they are shot. It depends from the management goals. What do you want to do? Do you eradicate the entire population, or maybe just reduce the number, depending from the plan. In some areas, horses are trapped passively. So there are trapped builds, and there is like a gate, a spear gate, so an animal can get in but can't get out. And the traps are equipped with a lure. Lure is depending from the situation. In areas where it's dry, there's not much water around, there is a water source in the trap, so animals come to the water and they stay there, they can't get out. In snowy mountains, in this snowy alpine national park, trapping is done in winter, and they put hay, and it takes a long time for horses to learn that hay means good food, because in general it is a foreign forage, they don't know, so they wouldn't go and eat it. But this management in this particular park has been done for many, many years now, and horses learn to eat it, and they teach other horses to go and eat hay, and they can be trapped in a yard as well. Unfortunately, passive trapping is not really economically viable in many places in Australia, because you need to get to the remote area, build the trap, and then you need to maintain it, you need to make sure there's water or hay, and then if horses are trapped, you need to remove them. So you need to have a vehicle to get the horses out. So it's very complicated, but it is done, and it works on smaller populations to a certain degree. And the horses are usually, what's the fate? They are usually taken to a slaughterhouse, or in some places they can be adopted. There are some Brahmi organizations which take horses for adoption programs, they train them and they adopt them. However, it's really hard. I'm only talking from my perspective, because me and my supervisor, I was assisting him. He's trapping horses and giving people for adoption, and we cannot find people. He cannot find enough people who would adopt the horses. In the beginning he could, but now it's getting harder and harder. So not that many people would like to have even horses for free. So what do you do with so large population? So if you can't do that, this is the proposal. A lot of Brahmi groups, a lot of horse enthusiasts believe that fertility control is the way to go. It has been to a certain degree proven that it worked in mostly United States, because they did a large number of research. And they're thinking maybe this is what we can do. We can stop the cycle, mares will not breed, and so on. And it is very controversial as well, because I'm not going to go into pros and cons of this method. It's not the purpose of this talk. But it's also quite hard to apply in Australia. And I used this knowledge about the fertility control and my own research to see if maybe this method can be implemented into one particular population which I have been studying. And this is where we finally, after this long introduction, I'm going to take you to my research side, and I will tell you a little bit more. How is this talking going? I mean, am I clear? Am I too fast? Would you like me to speak slower, maybe? No? Is okay? You're not just nice? Okay? Okay. So I'll take you to my research. So you will see it has been done here. As long as I just would like to go everywhere, you know, the PhD is limited, not just time, but also funding. You need to limit your focus onto one little thing. So I was funded, my project was funded, and I was studying this population here on East Australian coast. And this slide reminds me that it's time for film, because I decided that I will not be talking about the area, I'll just show you. Breer Con, I believe. Just have to make it louder.
Wild horses of Australia.
Can you hear well?
Were introduced by the European settlers in the 18th century. With time, some of them were left to range freely across the continent. While left alone, they managed to adapt to the harsh climate and survived without human contact for decades. Currently, they occupy remote areas and are hardly observed by a human eye. To survive, they compete with Australian native animals for food, water and shelter. They often struggle to find good pasture and are forced to travel long distances to find drinking water. But despite the odds, they adapted well to the demanding conditions. Navigating thousands of kilometers across the continent, they succeeded in finding suitable areas for existence. This is a story of one isolated population of wild horses. This is a celebration of birth, life, and death of one of the most magnificent species on Earth. Forest is a large pine plantation, which is located on the Australian east coast and stretches from the Great Sandy National Park to the mountainous hinterland of the Great Dividing Range. Pine trees were introduced here in the beginning of 20th century and were a primary timber supply in the rapidly growing Australian economy. Poor in nutrients, sandy soils of the region were perfectly suited for the fast-growing timber resource. With the growing forestry industry came the horses. They were initially introduced to provide a towing power for the industry and eventually were left behind as a result of increased mechanization. Over time, the wild horse population expanded and obtained a permanent place in this unique landscape. The forest lies in a temperate climate, where the spring is dry and summer months are hot and humid. Temperatures can easily reach 40 degrees here. High humidity and heat make the air unbearably thick and sticky. Lack of pasture and dry waterholes can pose a huge challenge to the forest animals, making them travel longer distances in the search for food and water. But when the rain comes, it comes in buckets. It's so abundant that it often saturates the ground and results in plenty stagnant waterholes. Small creeks and streams can rapidly transform into fast-flowing rivers. After the summer heat and rain is over, the forest dramatically changes in appearance. The fog rises slowly above the horizon, and mornings become crisp and fresh again. The ground is covered in golden and yellow grass, and the landscape is full of life. Lakes surrounded by eucalyptus provide hunting grounds for local birds. The iconic grey kangaroos can often be seen while nibbling grass. Curious by nature emus can be found while looking for leaves, seeds and insects. The awkward echidna can occasionally cross a path while slowly moving from one patch of grass to another, and snakes can be observed searching for warmer grounds. The wild horses domesticated in the past and later turned back to the wild state regained a similar way of life to that of the wild ancestors. Their short body length and height is undoubtedly the result of natural selection and due to having to survive the rigorous environmental conditions. Social organization and behavior of wild horses is complex and fascinating. The life is concentrated in two systems. Mares, their young, and some stallions comprise the breeding groups, which are called harems, while the unattached colts and stallions congregate in bachelor groups. Each horse group occupies a designated home range. Harems often live in areas with better resources than bachelors. Despite living in a close proximity to each other, horses don't display territorial behavior, and their home ranges extensively overlap. Harem stallions and bachelors regularly deposit dung on a common dung piles in order to leave a sign of the presence in a given area. The scent marking behavior follows a strict ritual during which a stallion approaches an existing dung pile and sniffs it at first. Then he steps forward over it and defecates directly on it. And then turns around and sniffs it again. When horses are on the move, they always walk in a single file on well-established single tracks. The entire forest is interspersed by hundreds of mysterious pathways, which serve as the commuting roads between water and feeding grounds. The frequency of their use is marked by the amount of fresh dung produced on the major crossings.
So I wanted to show you a little bit more than just an environment, because at the same time I thought that I will introduce to you the species, the main character of my research and of this talk. As you see, it's quite a pretty environment. I mean, I think it is. And horses seem to coexist with Australian native animals, but no one really knows how well they coexist. No one really knew before my project how many horses were living in the area. This area, this forest, is of size of 1,000 square kilometers. And you could see horses by driving past, but that was not enough to know if we are talking about large population or just, spontaneous occasional occurrence of horses. So that's why I started this project, because we wanted to learn about this population. As an ecologist, you probably know very well that if you are going to either conserve or manage a population of whatever animal species, you need to know first what you are dealing with. So you need to know the number of animals, maybe the density per square kilometer, maybe what would be the reproduction rate. Even better would be to know what's survival rate, and maybe the greatest thing would be what's the population growth. Habitat preferences, do they have a home range, are they territorial, all of this. So I wanted to answer all of those questions, because believing that having those answers, we will be able to decide if this population is actually doing okay, or it still has room to expand, or maybe it's not. Maybe something should be done. Maybe this population actually should be controlled. It wasn't just a research question because we wanted to know, but also what we got. We got reports from the forestry and from the main roads, Department of Main Roads, that there is an increasing occurrence of collisions with horses on main roads. So we were kind of thinking, if there's more accidents, maybe there's more horses, and that something has to be done with that. So, going back to my main research questions, I spent 3 years. Over those 3 years, I spent 8 months living in the forest, and I was observing the horses and getting all the main information about social structure and all of those parameters which I just mentioned. I wanted to estimate them. So I used direct observations for gender, sex ratio, for harem composition, for falling rates. I use marked recapture to estimate survival of individuals, and I mark them in different age categories. So foals, yearlings, sub-adults, and adults. I used dung, which was very important. I never thought I would spend so much time studying shit, horse poo, but actually I learned that dung gives you so much important information. So because horses poo a lot, and this is a typical stallion pile of 2.5 meters in diameter, it was really a sign. There's a lot of horses there in some areas, maybe a lot of bachelor activity that had to be investigated. So we use dung count to estimate a population size. I will mention about this just in a moment. We couldn't really count the horses. It's a forest, a very dense environment. It was really hard, even for mark recapture, to do that. So we used dung instead. I also used dung for estimation of habitat preferences as well. It's another harem stallions and bachelor meeting place, as you can see. And this is a moment for another part of my documentary, which I will show you if I get there. So if you just give me a moment, instead of telling you, I'll just show you what I did. In other words, I will show you through the film. So we need to just go to 729, because you don't want to see all of that. Okay.
I spotted the 3 bachelors. Just over in that direction. They're just walking up the hill.
Observed horses were identified on a base of body size, gender, color, and individual markings. This process allowed recognition of animals in consecutive months and years, which in turn permitted characterization of social structure, reproductive performance, survival rate, and population growth rate. Due to habitat characteristic, it was very difficult to estimate population size based on counted animals. For this reason, the team applied a unique technique, which was based on the estimation of dung density. This method involved walking transect lines across the entire forest, during which horse dung was detected. The next step involved estimation of dung decay rate over time, which was obtained by monitoring freshly deposited horse dung over 440 days. The last step involved assessment of defecation rate. To obtain unbiased estimate, nearly 400 hours were spent on observations of over 200 horses over 12 months. These 3 parameters allowed computing the overall population size and indicated that the forest is occupied by over 1,300 horses. Estimation of home range size was achieved by applying GPS collars. This involved remote immobilization of horses. Darting drags were carefully measured and darts were sealed to prevent drag leakage. Each dart was equipped with VHF transmitter, allowing localization of darted horse in a field. Unexpected noise from a dart gun made horses to run. Luckily, for a short moment.
The mare is down, she's in sternal recumbency, and the other 4 have moved off the track, sort of circular.
The team observed the immobilization procedure from a distance, ready to quickly approach the animal by a vehicle. The GPS collar was placed tightly on the neck.
.1047, she was darted at 10:30.
Important vital parameters were also recorded. The temperature is 38.2, heart rate is 44, and SpO2. Body size, weight, body condition score, and age were carefully measured. horses were quickly reversed, and after a short time they returned to standing position. Initially feeling dizzy, they regained a full balance in a short time and returned to their families. GPS-colored horse groups provided us with information of home range size, core use areas and habitat preferences. This knowledge helped us to better understand horses' interaction with the environment.
So it was very interesting, very long study which involved collection of a lot of parameters. You already know we estimated population size of around 1,300 horses. We learned about habitat, about home range size. How about other things? So over 3 years I investigated the fecundity of females, which is a falling rate. We kind of fecundity we conveniently estimated is 1/2 of falling rate, and looks like the falling rate is around 46%, which is pretty low considering the ability of horses. Domestic horses can go up to 80%, and other feral horses can go also much higher. So this is one of the lowest values found in the literature. But having the fecundity, and then having the age-specific survival, which we did by the mark recapture analysis, looked that it's really high. It's pretty much 95%, so very high survival of horses. But having those two parameters, we were able to use the Leslie projection population matrix, which allowed us to estimate population growth rate. For those of you who may be confused with this number, that is equal to roughly 9%, so 8.8%, which is kind of on the lower values for large herbivores. Large herbivores can, in particular horses, the low value will be anything between 5 and 10, up to 10. Over 10, it's considered probably higher, and sometimes some studies found in America that the wild horse populations can even grow up to 20% per year. So 9% is considered quite low. So having all those three parameters allowed us, plus the size of the population, allowed me to estimate the population growth and predicted what will be over years. Just look at the wide graph. The red and the blue are the high and low confidence intervals. So if at the point here was 1,300 horses and the population is growing about 9% per year, we estimated that it will double in size in about 10 years. And having 1,300 of horses in a forest and knowing that we will be dealing with 2,600 of horses in a few years, it's quite a big concern. Of course, this is only based on assumption that the rates of those parameters will remain constant. It will not change. That, of course, may change one way or another. So that was very important finding, which, we didn't have this knowledge before. And one of, I think, the most crucial finding of this study, because I mentioned to you this idea of immunocontraception, was how much the reproduction of horses, how much does it correlate with population growth. And we did a sensitivity analysis. What is this doing? This analysis is checking which part of the population dynamics, which is either the survival or reproduction, is having the greatest impact on population growth rate. And what we did is the red bar here, it shows that adult survival was the most sensitive. And what it means for the managers of this population, it means that if the managers would like to target female survival, adult female survival, it will have the greatest impact on population growth rate and will limit the population growth rate the fastest. On another hand, the fecundity, meaning the reproduction, was not low, but was significantly lower than a survival. And what it means that using fertility control to stop the breeding cycle of a female will probably not be the best return on investment, because the falling rate is already low. Mares seem to invest more energy into survival of their own survival and survival of their offspring. So targeting fecundity, targeting reproduction, probably would not bring the greatest effect. So that was the most important finding, because you see, using fertility control is not an easy thing to do. Females, current research indicates that females need to be, we are thinking about immunocontraception, needs to be targeted as an intramuscular injection. So they need to get the drug into the muscle. It has to be done repetitively over time to stop the cycle over a long time. So those females will have to be somehow captured, somehow treated, and maybe somehow recaptured and treated again. And having 1,300 horses, knowing that 50%, there is a 50-50 gender ratio, and knowing that there is about a large number of females, I won't be making it too complicated now. We estimate that to treat those females for successful treatment, we'll have to catch 260 to 360 females in order to, apply the fertility and make them infertile. And in a forest environment, on horses, the population which is spread over 1,000 square kilometers is pretty hard thing to do. So what I'm trying to say is that I do not want you to think that I'm against fertility control. Not at all. It's just that I really find it really hard to apply in a population where logistically horses are very hard to catch. And then you need to apply this drug, and then you are actually what you are treating. You're stopping the reproduction or slowing it down, where in fact it's not having the greatest impact on population growth. So if you want to do it, it's better to treat survival by removing females, removing adult horses from the population. So in other words, this is probably the best, the quickest right now solution. Maybe removing animals and then maybe treating others would be a good combination, but not just fertility on its own. Yes, I think that was one of the most cool answers which I got from this project. This is just to summarize what I just pretty much said. I could have shown you this slide a little bit earlier, so you could have seen it, but pretty much that's what I mentioned. If you are on Instagram, I would like you to invite you to photographs of wild horses. If you are a wild horse fanatic, you can have a look at some cool pictures.